record to the cloud. Okay, good. Thanks. Was that you, Kylie? Great. Okay. Oh, there's more people coming in. So I guess we'll give a brief couple minutes to let everybody kind of show up. There's more people coming in. Build a nice big room for this virtual reception. My name is Brian Peshik. I am the exhibition coordinator for this year, and of course, several of the past years. And I'm also on the board of directors at the McGroarty Arts Center. So I guess in a way, I'll be your host. And shortly we'll get started. We'll introduce our featured artist and juror for this year's show. So let's give a couple more minutes for the participants to propagate here. One thing I'd like you guys to do is if your name is not your full first and last name, if you could go ahead and change that right next to your name. If you click on participants and you'll see the list of names that are joining us, click next to yours and you can change your name to full first and last name. So there'll be a brief chance at some point tonight we'll have a Q&A, so we'll be able to see your full name. And also we'd like to know if some of the exhibiting artists in the show are here this evening. So please take some time if you haven't, if your name is not full first and last, change that in the participants bar. Appreciate it.
Shana, are you creating work right now?
What? That's not fair.
It's all right. I think you're muted.
Yes, I am. I was trying to figure out how to get the lighting to work and all this stuff. Yeah, I get this stuff so I get tomorrow off. So, hey, Brian, how are you?
Good, good. Good to see you.
You too.
So I guess now is a good time to introduce our featured artist and juror. He's been an artist in our shows in the past here at McGroarty, several shows back when we had, it was invitationals. He's participated in several of our exhibitions over the past years. Brian Kohl, welcome.
Thank you, Brian.
Glad to have you, and thanks for lending your eyes to this year's show and being our featured artist and juror.
No problem. It was an honor.
This is our 18th annual. For I guess it's been about 5 years now that we've been a national exhibition open, and so I guess our first was 2018. That was our first year as a juried exhibition, and was a regional. We started out as a regional. We thought we could just go national and expand the scope of our reach for this show that we have, our annual. But we started these exhibitions. We started out as invitationals, and we've been doing this every June for roughly, I want to say like 15 or more years. And so you've been a participant in a few of those past invitationals that we've had. And we've put together a lot of stunning shows, and this one is certainly no exception. Now, this year's exhibition, we hoped to be live in our exhibition space, but of course, last year, we also hoped to be live in the exhibition space, but of course, COVID put the kibosh on that. And of course, the Art Center is on city property, so we're governed by LA City Department of Cultural Affairs. So hopefully we'll be opening up for sure next year, and we'll be live in the space. And as I mentioned, we'd hoped this year, but the city moves at kind of a snail's pace. So anyway, that's where we are. So completely virtual exhibition last year, and was certainly wasn't without many challenges, but it was our first online virtual exhibition, and I think it came out really amazing last year. And I think you'll see that this show looks really amazing. The show when you visit the site online. So again, you could see the site live. It's live now at McGroartyArtsCenter.org/Cup Show 2022. So you can check that out. There's a couple pages there. And of course, you can peruse the artist's work and even make a purchase, right? So a lot of the work is available for purchase. There's some, I was just looking at it. I just saw it just a little while ago. There's some amazing work and some very attainable works, just right in my price range. So let me see how we're doing on the Zoom. It seems like we've got quite a big group here. So let's see. We'll be making our award announcements a little bit later, but we'll have Brian talk a little bit about his selections in the show. So and maybe a little bit about your background. And I know we've contacted each other. We kind of our paths met several times at the several exhibitions in Southern California, particularly the Scripps Annual. I've seen you many times there at those openings. And of course, we even taught for a while at the same place there, Chaffee and Rancho Cucamonga. I guess this was back in 2007, I think. I taught there for roughly a year. And you were there as well, and that's kind of where we first met, I think, if I recall.
So yeah.
But you also have taught many other places in Southern California. I know Saddleback, and of course, you're currently now full-time at Riverside City College, correct?
That is correct. Yes, it's been we're closing in on my 4th semester there, so the close of my 2nd year working as an assistant professor at Riverside City College.
How's that going? You
so, I mean, no, it's been met with all of its challenges with coming in right after COVID and having online kind of all online with just a few studio visits for dropping off work and whatnot, all the challenges that other people I'm sure have faced. And then the next semester was hybrid courses with lab in person and lecture online. And now we've been about, let's see, two full semesters of full in-person instruction there at the college. So that's been great. And it's been great to start transforming the studio and, making a few changes here and there to what has historically kind of taken place at Riverside, but also, paying very close attention to what Steve Horn and John Hopkins have brought to the program in the past. And so, I want to follow in their footsteps as well and still keep that clay community alive in Riverside, which has been, a big part of the community in the past.
Awesome. That's really cool. So 4 years, awesome. Where and you currently have you want to talk a little bit about your work and well, I'm curious about some of the new things that you've been creating, and
Yes.
if you want to, even though they can see it live on the site, maybe talk about some of the work that you've got in our exhibition and some of the work that you have been working on of late.
What's been great is, before getting this position at Riverside City College, I was very fortunate to be able to take off about 3 full semesters in the fall time and travel to China and start developing a new body of work. I spent a lot of time. I spent 2 separate 2 or 2+ month residencies in Jingdezhen at the pottery workshop there. And that kind of has been where I've been developing where I was able to start developing a newer body of work, dealing a lot with water issues and using imagery from dams and water fixtures and natural, kind of natural landscapes and juxtaposed against those. And I've just started to kind of dive into that work that's directly involved in, just getting imagery from kind of how we receive and how we get our water, running through a vast series of conduits from dams and traveling through, especially here in California area, some of our water gets piped into Southern California from over 800 miles away. And, that kind of conduit system system of delivery, and then from that system, and then moving into various other pipes, and then traveling through our water fixtures. It's quite a I don't know, confusing and miles and miles and miles of travel that this very important substance has to go in order to get into our cups and into our lives, so that we can sustain ourselves. So that kind of stuff really interests me, and has been very important, and has started to make his way into my sculptures and into my cups, and just given me something to be able to kind of figure out my imagery that ends up on my work. And it's something that's very near and dear to me. I've worked for the past 23 years in the summertime as a whitewater rafting guide, and worked on these other various conduit systems of rivers that run from mountains into reservoirs and into other river systems. And I'm constantly seeing that movement of that water in its natural state. And then I'm thinking about how that water also travels in its unnatural state, if you will, through all those pipes and conduits, and being held up in reservoirs that are not natural lakes. And that's something that just is interesting to me, and something that I want to use to gain imagery, and to maybe get a little bit of awareness from the viewers that see my work.
Mhm. Yes, I know you're often every summer. I remember from meeting you way back when, that every summer you were kind of off on your rafting trips. I guess summers were hard to get a hold of you.
I leave on the 15th, probably about on the 15th, and I've got 5 trips this summer on the Middle Fork of the Salmon River in Idaho. And that's kind of where I've been for the past about 7 years. And that's just how I occupy my time in the summer. And I love working out there. I love seeing the natural beauty of the areas. It's kind of what fuels my, my desire to make work as well. And then some of that imagery makes its way into my work as well. So it's very, very important to me as an individual, and me as an artist.
Do you hook up with an outfit, or do you do
yeah.
pretty much your own?
No, I've been commercial. I've been a full-time commercial raft guide for the past 23. I think this is season 24 for me. I'm not sure. I started when I was 22 years old, and I've not through everything. I've worked full commercial seasons, even through the pandemic. We still were running trips with masks on in the kitchen, and in certain, and on the buses and everything. So it was, kind of an interesting situation, but it all still happened because it was a little bit after quarantine. And yeah, I haven't taken a break from it. This year I'm doing a few less trips than I've ever done. And I don't know, maybe in the future I might do a little bit less commercially and start doing more privately. So I can just kind of have a little bit more fun at it, rather than have it be a portion of my job as well.
So do you guide in one of the big rafts, or do you do the kayak or canoe?
In rafts. Yeah, paddle guiding, where there's people paddling in front, and I'm kind of barking out commands. And then we also do, we have on our trips, we have oar boats. So I'm in the center of the boat with oars, and people are kind of like just riding along in those specific rafts.
Sounds like fun.
It is still work, but it is fun.
Yes. So you mentioned I know you've taken a couple trips to China, Jingdezhen, China. Is it something you do? You take a break during the semester, or was that a summer activity?
I did those in the fall time. So I did two stints at the pottery workshop in Jingdezhen, and I was out there making work. And some of the work that's in the show is from those stints in Jingdezhen. And then some of it has been finished here, like the 2 sculptures that are in the show. The porcelain portion of those pieces were made in China, and then actually a lot of the cups and the mugs that are in the show as well were made there. But then some of the decal work was done here once coming back stateside. But that's where I was able to really kind of hone those series of mugs and cups and sculptures. And I've got a number of other sculptures and I have an installation as well that I began when I was in China, but that work hasn't been finished at this moment. So it's kind of like that porcelain work was made there. And then there's a lot more work that has to be done to it once I get that work back here stateside. But, it's been an incredible opportunity to be able to go out there and really focus and not be teaching and able to kind of, really kind of buckle down and work out issues with specific series. And I don't know, just, be able to be around those individuals. I don't know if anybody's traveled out there before, but it's an incredible place. And the Pottery Workshop and in and around that specific city, that city is the birthplace of porcelain. It's where all of the major dynasties over the last close to 3,000 years in China, that's where those dynasties, emperors had imperial kilns, and the work was made for the emperor and their courts. And then there's been work that's been shipped all over the world from Jingdezhen. It's a porcelain, basically it's almost like Mecca if you've ever been there as a ceramic artist. It's pretty incredible. And there's probably close to, I don't know, 70 to 100 artists that are there at any given time from all over the world. So, you go out at night and go to a brewery or go and hang out at a restaurant and you'll run into 5 people you haven't met yet. And then you start speaking to them about their work and what it is that they're doing and what their projects are. And then you'll have a chance to go and visit their studios. And it's just an incredible place. It's really, and there's really no tourism there, no American tourism or a Western tourism. There's a lot of Chinese tourism because people come there to go and visit the various factories and go and visit places to be able to buy porcelain as, tea consumers or, just consumers in general. But as from the Western world, it's not really a place that people know about unless you're involved in ceramics.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I wanted you, I'm sure our viewers would like to hear about your experiences there. And of course, when we talk about China clay, this is specifically the region where the China clay came from. It's the longest continually producing, village, Jingdezhen, that has been doing that, that porcelain, that deposit of clay that has been there for thousands of years. So it's amazing. I've never been there yet. I haven't gotten there yet, but one of these days. I know my first exposure to it was back when I was in grad school at Alfred. We had a Chinese exchange student. He was actually in the program my same year, and he shared with us videos from Jingdezhen and his experiences there. He's from China, and he, along with one of the instructors, tried to make the connection, try to connect Alfred to the China connection between the two, Wayne Higby and him.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, and so they kind of made a good connection between the school, and every once in a while we get some exchange students from China through the program there. So it sounds really amazing, and definitely one day we'd like to visit there. I would definitely like to go there as a studio artist. Rather than just visit.
Yeah, and West Virginia University also has they have a semester program and a summer program. And any students that go to get their master's degree at West Virginia University, they're required to spend their first semester in China. It's the fall semester. I think they haven't done the fall semester for the past, 2 years, just because of travel restrictions. But as soon as it picks back up, they'll be doing it again. And I think they may be going there this summer. I'm not certain. And my first kind of introduction to that was through NCECA and going to Jingdezhen for a symposium. And it was a reciprocal symposium about art and education in ceramic in the United States and China. So a delegation of people from the US went over. There was about 65 of us, I think, students, professors, studio artists that went over to Jingdezhen for this symposium. And then a couple of years later, there was a delegation of Chinese people that came over here to the United States and took part in the kind of reciprocal portion of that symposium. So that was my first introduction to the area. And then a good friend of mine, Eric Cow, he was the director of the pottery workshop for, gosh, maybe 5 or 6 years. And I went over there. I think his second to last or last year that he was the director was my first year out there doing the residency. And then the following year, after my 2 residencies in the fall, I was given the opportunity through Shoji Satake at West Virginia University to travel out to southern China to a place called Izhou, spelled Yijho, I believe. I'm probably messing that up. But it's in the very southern portion of China. And I was able to go out there and teach high school ceramics for a couple of months in that region. So I've kind of fallen in love with that just the area of China as well. And the people in China, they're incredible people and very warm and inviting humans that will give until they can't give anymore. So it's a wonderful place. Everywhere I've traveled in that region.
So did you visit any of the factories there? Did you get to see any of the workers doing like glazing or the oxide decoration, the brushwork? Did you see any of the artists?
The brushwork, I've seen the traditional carvers on, small scale work to large scale work to, seeing the, 2 to 3 people throwing large platters and planters and, wet the dry. They actually do a technique that's more like a dry sectioning of their clay rather than what we would do here as wet sectioning to, make large pieces. If they're making 12 to 14 foot tall porcelain vessels, they put a very, very light amount of water onto each portion of those sections, and then they kind of stick them together. And the clay out there is so ridiculously, it fluxes so much in the firing that it will essentially just glue the pieces together, even if they're just sat on top of each other. There's no scoring or slipping or anything like that necessarily for those larger objects, because there's so much gravity and so much weight pushing the 2 pieces together, and the seam disappears essentially. It's really wild. It's a really wild, different way to think about clay.
Sounds like they have to be very accurate with their calipers though, and get those measure those seams to line up perfectly.
They trim them on top of them, on each section on top of itself, and then they use razor blade, like single-edged razor blades to go in and trim to get the trimming as accurate as possible.
Yeah, no, I've seen a lot of videos over the years. It's just really amazing how they trim dry and they, just like a simple tea bowl or a rice bowl, they trim it bone dry, and it's like, it takes like, a couple seconds, 5-10 seconds, and they're done trimming a bowl, and they put another one on the hump. And then with the oxide, the decoration, they're sitting there, they're turning it by hand, and their hand and the brush is moving so fast, and the decoration is just coming out so amazing. And they could paint like a couple cups before they have to dip the brush back into the color. This pretty amazing stuff. So that sounds like
the mug series that I have that's shown in that I'm showing in this show are pieces that I made while I was there, and then finished them once they came back here with some decal work. But I was really drawn to my first trip to China by the very traditional Jingdezhenware, which is blue on white, but there's also a little bit of red that's involved. So that's where I kind of use that idea of having an underglaze and trying to get a little bit of kind of depth within the work by using an underglaze, an overglaze, or an underglaze transfer on top of that, and then decal work on top of that. So there's a little bit more depth in the work. But then it's inspired big time by the ancient Jingdezhenware that is like kind of blue on white, but then has a little bit of red involved. That really beautiful, like very, very bright Chinese red. Rachel, you have your hand raised. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you about, I know you're talking about Jinggujen work, but I'm familiar with, the sort of different styles that come from China and all the different places. So like, Jinggujen, is it close to like, it's just the technique you're talking about, correct? It's not the like shape, like it's not an ongi pot or Jamon work or anything like specific in shape. You're talking about sort of the surface decoration.
Well, I'm talking about my specific surface decoration with the blue on white, but basically all that blue on white work, the way I understand it historically, it originated from Jinggujen. So
Okay.
if you go into a museum anywhere in the world and you see that blue on white technique, and it's been, dynasty after dynasty after dynasty, and each one of those dynasties have specific ways in which they, and the earlier dynasties, the work was a little bit more simple in terms of the decoration that they would do by painting the cobalt stains onto the not just bone dry work, because they single fire there for the most part.
Right.
They don't do a lot of bisque firing first, and so they're painting basically the name is escaping to me. It'll probably come to me in a moment, but they're painting on basically a cobalt underglaze. So it's not just like what we would consider cobalt here, where we just paint cobalt onto something and then it might run a little bit with the glaze. It's made a little bit differently, where there actually is some China clay and different things that are involved.
Like stabilizers.
Yeah, to stabilize it so it's not as runny as it might be if it was just plain old cobalt. And then there's variations of purities of cobalt that are used in that region as well. But yeah, if you go in, like most of the museums around the world, you go there, if it looks like a blue on white Chinese piece, if you look closely, it'll say Jinggujen, which is the city at first it was a village that was in the mountains where the original primary clay source was from this wonderful what's it called, porcelain material, but then now it's moved down into the valley and closer to the river, and there was a river that's right next to the town, and so that was what enabled the region to start building factories and to start shipping things and using those river systems to get things to the ocean and then things across the ocean. Starting a very long time ago, this stuff has been moving around the world for quite some time.
Yeah, I have one last question. Are they atmospherically firing, or do you know if they're using just like a classic, like, did you use a classic gas kiln, or were you using?
Now they're doing it just in basically a fiber kiln is what they use, because it's ridiculous too. They fire up to almost cone 14, and that work is, they put it in at about 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's unloaded and ready for you to pick up at like 8 o'clock in the morning. It's
I'm
wild.
Sorry, that's insane. Sorry, that's insane. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
They finish the firing and the work is red hot, and they open the kiln up, and I've watched it happen
and
before. They pull the cart out of the kiln.
Oh, wild!
And crash cool it to a certain temperature, and then where the work is just about glowing, and then they'll push it back into the kiln to finish it up. And
that's really
I've had
wild.
several people tell me that the clay there is closer to glass than it really is to clay.
I mean, truly, that's so interesting. Wow. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Problem.
Well, there's been several times I've had to do that back in grad school when I was pressed for, working all night, and we had reviews the next morning, and you gotta be ready for your review, in school, so you gotta like crash cool it, you get it up to cone 10 or 11, and then turn it off, and then just open up the door, just let the glow escape until you get close to quartz inversion, and then close it back up. So
yeah, there's safe ways to do it and there's unsafe ways to do it, right?
Yeah. Well, sorry, one last question. I'm so sorry. Is it an extremely reduced firing, or is it very oxygenated firing? Am I allowed to ask that?
Reduction firing, because there's a lot of celadons that are in that region.
Right.
So.
Okay. I thought so. Okay. Cool.
And
Thank you.
traditional iron celadons, so you would
Oh,
have
yeah.
required in reduction. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for your question. And if there's anybody else that I guess we could do a quick Q&A about if you want to learn a little bit more about Brian's background, or let's see, we'll be talking about the selections, after the awards. We'll have there'll be time for another Q&A after the award announcements, if you need, and hopefully we'll hear from some of the artists if they're in the room. But maybe you want to talk a little bit about your background. I know you obviously, it's the whitewater rafting and the that kind of led you into ceramics, I believe, or was it around the same time?
Actually, I grew up, the street I grew up on, there's actually, I don't know, maybe, I think 3 of us total off the street that ended up being involved in the arts in our careers. And there was a woman that lived a couple doors down from me. Her name was Betty Kelly. And she gave me drawing lessons and pen and ink lessons when we were younger. It was something that my mom always wanted to have as part of our lives, and never was able to get that when she was younger. So she wanted to have something like that happening. So she knew that the woman that lived a couple doors down from us was a commercial artist. And so she gave us lessons when we were younger. And that's what kind of got myself involved in the arts. And I was also heavily involved in music. I was in marching band and concert band and jazz band and drum line and all those sorts of things. And so when I actually went to Orange Coast College for junior college. And it was there that I found out I started taking art classes. I was also taking electronic music classes. And I was trying to find out whether or not I wanted to be involved in music or visual art as a career path. And when I was there was a friend of mine that was in the animation program at Cal State Fullerton. And so I was able to go and visit Cal State Fullerton and find out some information about their animation program. And that's what led me to going to Cal State Fullerton. And it wasn't until I was in the animation program for a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Animation there that I discovered ceramics and took a sculpture class and really started to understand that, the three-dimensional world made more sense to me as an artist, and I was able to express myself in a better way. And I felt like I could get out what I needed to get out of me in that sense. And so it was through a guy who was there at Cal State Fullerton that was getting his Master of Fine Arts at the time, and he kind of was a mentor to me. His name is Robbie Woods. And he was like, "Hey, Brian, why are you still involved in this animation stuff? Like, you should be getting a degree in ceramics." And I really took that to heart, and kind of extended my stay at Cal State Fullerton and ended up getting my Bachelor of Fine Arts in ceramics and animation, both concentrations. And then I immediately went into a Master of Fine Arts program there at Cal State Fullerton to finish up my Master of Fine Arts. And so that's kind of my path of, getting into ceramics. It was a little bit later in my arts career, if you will, or arts education, I guess, that me into the realm of ceramics and sculpture.
Awesome. Yeah, I know for me, if I wouldn't have gotten into the visual arts, I know I'm such a music lover. I would love to have gone into music. That's what I would have done too. So that's, to me, I think are very, very closely connected, music and visual arts. So I kind of, my midlife crisis was not too long ago. I got my first drum kit in the living room here.
Oh, nice.
I bang on just to get rid of, just to get my the worries, cares of the day away, and just beat on a drum. It's great exercise.
I recently, about 2 years ago, I had to sell my drum kit because I didn't have room for it anymore. So, and I live in a 1-bedroom condo, so it's not very conducive to playing that kind of percussive instrument. And percussion was my realm, essentially. By the end of things, I was in, I was playing snare drum and drum kit and jazz band and everything. So, but yeah, someday I'll get another drum kit. Maybe I'll get an electronic one so I can play it with headphones, and then my neighbors won't be able to.
Yes, my wife and kid hate it when I get on there. But it's great therapy.
Exactly.
Anyway, so if anybody else here in the room has a question for Brian, love to hear it. I know I have a couple questions if nobody steps up.
Brian Peshik has the hard pressing questions. You're like the
So on the
you're like-
topic, I know, you've probably done quite a bit of research when it comes to waterways and dams specifically. So how do you reconcile the duality with the dam situation? Of course, it's kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Of course, there is certainly a benefit to the dam, but also, when it comes to nature and, the thing that, and then the other side of the coin, basically, when it comes to the dam, how do you reconcile? And I'm just very curious, are you just to make the viewer aware of the situation, or do you have
in some of my work it is to make the viewer aware, but then in some of my work it's just about where I gain that imagery. And I think it's important to have a resource for pulling imagery rather than just kind of pulling imagery out of the sky and you're like, oh, I'm going to put some polka dots on this one, and this one I'll do a grid of checkerboards or whatever. And I mean, for some artists that works, but for me that didn't work. And I found myself very lost in trying to find out what it is that I would put on my work, and what could I put on my work that would maybe make my work a little bit different than other people's that other people that are out there making. And so, being able to, of course there's a duality, like we have to have water. And of course I live in Southern California, and some people have even asked me before, well, like, why do you live in Southern California if that's what's going on there? And it's like, well, that's a great question. And I don't know how to answer that necessarily, other than this is where I grew up, and this is the place that I know, and this is the place that I have, employment, and that I've chosen to live my life. And so what I realize is that I can make conscious decisions within my life that can help to reduce the amount of water that I consume as a human. And I can also do that within my classroom, within the studio space. I've been involved in NCECA's Green Task Force since its inception in like 2000 and, oh man, I don't even remember, 4, 5, 6, somewhere around there, where we're making some of these issues aware, we're bringing awareness to some of these environmental issues and how to be more sustainable in our practices within the field of ceramics. And so that's another aspect of not necessarily my professional work or the work that I make in terms of visually speaking, but it is a big part of the work that I do as a ceramic artist, is trying to spread the word essentially of how can we be better about what it is that we do. Because the answer, and I mean, I chose the field of ceramics. I didn't choose the field of, what would that be, in civil engineering, to try and figure out a different way of being able to deal with our water crises that we're facing. So I feel like us as artists, we have a unique kind of opportunity to be able to make people aware of things, but as an artist, I'm not the person that's necessarily making that change, right? We can talk about reservoirs and open air reservoirs and how those things are inherently not working in our systems, and carrying water over 800 miles in an open aqueduct is not the best way to transport it. But we can also talk about how we can conserve the water that's here, so we have to use less of it, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I think we have a unique opportunity as artists to be able to do those sorts of things with our work. We don't have to, but that's what I've chosen to do. Mm-hmm. And Rachel, you have another question? Or should I call you Ranch?
Yeah, you can call me Ranch. That's my artist nickname, but I write all my work with. I'll assign it all. So I'm actually in Chicago. So I grew up in Southern California in the town that McGroarty is in. And it's interesting that you're talking about the sustainability of ceramics, because I do a lot of work in Chicago around that. How do you feel about low fire, mid fire versus high fire. You know, the sustainability, it looks like in the current sort of contemporary art world, there's a lot of young people like me that are working in lower temperatures because it is a little bit more sustainable in terms of like affordability of electric, and you don't need to use a gas kiln for most of it. But I am a huge fan of wood, soda, salt reduction, you name it. And I would rather do that. And I just want to see what your opinion is on all of that and the sustainability of such. Because for us in Chicago, water is not a big issue. We've got Lake Michigan. It is an issue, but it's not like California. So I'm just curious what you think about like energy consumption and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And, you know, working at a community college or working even at a you know, a university anywhere in the US, I think that more and more we have a responsibility to basically lower our firing range at those specific locations because there's so much work that goes through our studios. I don't think that there's a problem if an individual artist wants to you know, make work at a specific firing range because they want to get a specific result necessarily. I don't think that negates the power of the work if the work is about sustainability. You know, I think that's getting a little bit, people are kind of, you know, picking at people a little bit too hard and when it comes to that. But I think that at the institutional level, I think that we have a responsibility of doing that. I inherited at a Cone 10 studio coming into Riverside City College. And I haven't gotten to the point of switching it over yet, but I'm hoping that next semester we'll be able to. I just have bags and bags and bags of pre-mixed Cone 10 glazes. And unfortunately, being at certain places, there's actually a barrier to being able to even donating that stuff to somebody else other than us. It's actually easier to throw it in the trash than it is to donate it. I've been trying to donate 5 boxes of bricks to the American Museum of Ceramic Arts. And it's been over 3 months that I've been trying to deal with people across campus to be able to just give that stuff away. Because it's money that the state has used and they consider as an asset. And so if we're getting rid of that, so there's this kind of weird system that's in place for some of these you know, for state institutions, if you will, to be able to get rid of this stuff. So I'm just trying to basically continuing to fire the stuff, continuing to fire clays and glazes at this higher firing temperature until we don't have enough of it to be able to have a valid program. And then we can switch over to Cone 6, because I feel like students can learn what they need at about Cone 5, Cone 6 to be able to fire at low fire, to be able to fire at mid range, to be able to fire at Cone 10. In fact, maybe even Cone 10 might be easier because it's been around longer and people have been doing it a little bit longer. And they're able to, you know, make glazes and test their glazes and figure out their glazes a little bit easier at that firing range. There's a little bit more flux that happens once you get another couple hundred degrees up, right?
Right.
So that's where I stand in that sense. You know, and any time that I've had the opportunity to try and redesign a studio at a college, it's been to increase the amount of natural light that's within the area rather than having to use, you know, rely on lighting. And something that I learned recently from reading a book that was about environmental issues is that if we turn the lights off, we can save water. And if we turn the water off, we can save electricity. Yeah. Sounds weird to think about it in that respect, but that's how it works because we get hydroelectric, everything is based off of hydroelectric power for the most part. So, and that's why there's images of dams as well in my work, is because, you know, I love engineering drawings. They're really exciting to me, even though they're a little bit more stagnant and straight edged and very, you know, precise, but being able to get that imagery onto clay, that's something that's really interesting to me as well.
Yeah. I run Northwestern University ceramics department, and we have also transitioned fully from a Cone 10 to a Cone 6. It took us about 3 years, just because of the sort of turnaround we had. I mean, we've recycled upwards of 25,000 100,000 pounds by hand. Like, we don't have a pugger. Our resources are really, really low. The gas kiln was better off just making into regular piles of bricks. So just wasn't in the best condition. So I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. And you know what, Rachel, or sorry, Ranch, contact me and we can talk about, we've got a lot of volunteers that are doing stuff within the NSECA Green Task Force, and we're always looking for, articles or papers or research that's being done anywhere, or just information, so that we can spread this kind of word to everyone else within the field.
I'm beginning research.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm beginning research soon, fingers crossed, on converting old electric kilns to low fire to mid-range wood and salt, just because of the fact that soft brick just goes to the trash. What else can you use an old kiln for? These are sort of ways to do that. So I appreciate it, again, your time, and I will definitely connect with you because
Perfect.
I actually have someone who could use those bricks. So in LA. So
it's my name with a period in between at rcc.edu.
Okay, perfect.
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
And then I think, Heather, you also had a question. I've seen your hand raised.
Yeah, so we just, on that note, to follow up, we also converted our studio to, I'm at FIU, I'm an MFA student, so we've converted our studio as of this year to Code 6. So that's another positive in that direction. So I just wanted to share that as well. And then my other question was, when you were talking about the rivers and the lakes and things like that, does your, I guess, love and protection nature go to also like the oceans and stuff? And in that regard, are you scuba certified, and have you done that type of stuff? And I do
love the ocean, and I live in Huntington Beach, California, actually. And I am scuba certified. I got scuba certified after leaving Jingdezhen and traveling to where was I? I can't even think right now. To Thailand. So I got scuba certified in Thailand, and most recently did a trip to Roatan and dived out there.
Okay.
And the specific stuff that I'm researching is more about water conservation and water, like where water comes from, like where our tap water essentially comes from. So I haven't yet had anything kind of my work hasn't gone into that realm of, protection of the oceans necessarily. But it is something that I certainly think about, and is kind of near and dear to me as well, being living so close to the ocean.
Yeah, because also if you're scuba certified, like you could do scuba dives in rivers and lakes as well. So I was wondering if maybe that would help with your research. And so if you weren't scuba certified, I was going to recommend it. But I recently got scuba certified too. So I'm interested in doing a lot of the cleanups of the oceans and stuff. I live in Miami, Florida, so there's lots of places for me to do that here. So I was wondering.
You guys have great, you guys have great, like we are diving for free and go and do cleanups and helping of different species. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, so I was wondering if maybe that was something that we shared, was that need to want to do that type of work as well. So, but
very cool, very cool.
Now I don't know if you guys are aware, but I'm sharing screen here. If you guys have any questions about the work, or Brian, if you'd like to maybe talk a little bit about your work in the featured gallery here, featured artist gallery. So it starts at the top here. With your profile picture and a little statement here, but then I remember these pieces quite some time ago. I love these cups, and I thought they're really cool mix of media, and it took me a while to even notice that they were the plates, the platters, the saucers were kind of the states, of the Western states there. So you want to talk about
when they were first shown, they were all put kind of together, I think at a McGroarty show that I made these for. And they were made quite a while ago. This is kind of just some things that I still have, in storage essentially. And I haven't shown them in quite some time, but in making this series, I was thinking about how, we can't have we can't have water without having without having this power, essentially, right? Like a lot of because we have so many people and we're moving all this water around from place to place, is that you can't remove that cup from the state, essentially, or from the saucer to be able to drink out of it, because it's connected to a power line. And that's kind of how I feel about dams and reservoirs, essentially, is that you kind of can't have hydroelectric power at the same time that you have a viable water source, because basically those reservoirs that we have all over the United States that started, the dam boom in the 1940s, those reservoirs are eventually either going to become too much sediment down inside of them to where it decreases the capacity of the reservoir, or you're going to have the salinity level rise within the reservoir because there's no way to remove all of those minerals that come down with the water as it comes down the watershed. And we've already started to see that with some of our dam systems in the Southwest, is that so much water is evaporated out of the system and all of those minerals are left behind, that the salinity level rises to such a degree that the water can't be used for irrigation and it can't be used for irrigating of crops. So we may as well have let it go to the ocean and do maybe desalination at the ocean rather than holding things up here in reservoirs on land. I don't know. Obviously, like I said, I'm not a civil engineer. I don't know the answers to these things, but that's kind of where the idea for that series came from. And then the mug series, and pretty much the cup series that's below that as well, but that's basically has to do with where we get water from. It essentially has to travel from a natural area where it's held up in some sort of a natural landscape, moving through conduits of pipes. So there's a lot of pipe imagery that are on those pieces. And then there's also water fixtures, because once it travels through, held up in the dams, goes through those conduit systems of pipes and then comes out of our water fixtures. Whereas if you would ask maybe most people, they're just like, oh, well, water comes from the faucet. They don't necessarily exactly know where that water comes from. And that's kind of where this imagery, where I've taken this imagery, and essentially, or where this imagery comes from in my mind.
Very cool work. I love, obviously we see these in porcelain here. Are these any of the works that traveled from China? This clay,
yes,
perhaps?
The mug series traveled from China, and then the decal work was done here. And then the cups that are down below. So that specific cup shape comes from like kind of an artistic representation of like sewer and the connections that sewer pipes have. So that kind of bell housing that's down at the bottom portion of the mug, it comes from that idea of, these larger clay style pipes that move water around, but then it also acts as a nice, reservoir to be able to hold a bit more liquid and not have to, just have a cylinder shape. And then the handles come directly from copper pipes that I put together and then make molds of, and then put them on the ceramic cups.
This is very cool. Yeah, I see there now. I just noticed cone 14 Jingdezhen porcelain. Very cool. With those, do any of our viewers have questions for Brian on any of this particular work that we're seeing? Are the vessels wheel thrown, or are those molded as well?
The original piece was wheel thrown, and then molds were made. I've got a few molds for the cup, and then I have 2 different handle molds that I make. So they're all slip casted.
And then the red there.
I like to show this. What's that?
I was just curious about the red. You were mentioning earlier in your talk about
the red is just a red underglaze from the region, from Jingdezhen. And then the blue work is traditional Chinese like underglaze transfers that are on rice paper. And so I cut those up out of larger landscapes and then put them together to create either landscapes or skyscapes or something of that nature. And then get those. And then the decal work are decals that I put together and then had printed. It's a screen printing process that they use in Jingdezhen for a lot of their factory work. So you're able to have a lot of access to the factory, the factory, I don't know what you call it, like what a
Materials.
traditional factory, materials, thank you. The factory materials. And so you can go in and give them a Adobe Illustrator file of what it is that you want to make into decals, and then they'll make those into decals and then print them up, screen print them for you. The minimum is like 20 sheets at a time. And then this work as well is those transfers are decals that were made in Jingdezhen. But then I bring them home and then use them to put onto my work. And it's low fire stuff. It's like 017 is what I fire it to. So really low fire. And this specific color on these cup series that are actually made, this is another slip casted cup, but that's a 3-inch pipe that's up at the top portion of ABS pipes. And then the lower portion is a connector, like a connector and plug. If you look at the bottom, which I don't know, Brian, if you're able to click on the second image that shows the bottom. So that square portion that's down there is a square portion that's actually used as a plug to be able, or as a means to put in a tool to be able to tighten it on a piece of ABS, which is the black pipe that you typically would find in Home Depot. So
yeah, I
then
definitely immediately recognize these shapes as black ABS plumbing pipes. Yeah, it's like iconical with those lines there. I don't know if I clicked on the middle image. Did it show up bigger? Did it feature that photo?
Yeah.
Good. I'm curious about your. There's the made in Jingdezhen stamp, huh?
Yes, and the center portion is the same thing, made in Jingdezhen in Chinese, and then the English portion is on the top and the bottom.
Very cool. Did you get your own personal stamp made there too?
I did. I got that stamp made, and I have one to be able to stamp with underglaze, and I have one that I can use to stamp into clay, where if I wanted to do like a negative, essentially. A carving, but a pressed stamp into the clay itself, I could do that. It's a little harder to do that on slip cast ware without tearing it and breaking it, because it'd have to be at too soft of a level to be able to do that.
And these are part of the series, the Dam Water Cups. I guess that's a play on words. Very cool. Exactly. I love that how clean they came out, so clean. And
those are my Dam cups.
Yeah, I see that. They could be yours though too. Another thing I'd like to maybe you could talk about is their celadons in China. Of course, the history of celadon. It's been some people say it's Korean inventions. Of course, the Chinese say it's Chinese, but certainly these are some splendid examples of celadon on these cups here you have. Is this straight out?
I like to use their, the way that glaze works over there for the most part, if you're over there making work, is that there's glaze shop. You go into the glaze shops and they have examples of it, and you're able to get small containers of it to be able to test it and make sure that it comes out exactly the way that you want it to. But I was looking, with my first series of cups, there's a number of different green celadons and then a blue celadon. And one of the green celadons that's on the mug series, there's only a couple of cups that have it. It almost looks clear. It's a very, very faint green celadon that was kind of formulated by Takeshi Yasuda, he's a pretty well-known Chinese. Well, I think he's Japanese, but he's working in China. His studio is in Jingdezhen still. So I think you just passed by one of them that was very faint. That's the green celadon there on hydropower mug number 2. And then there's one that almost looks white. I don't know if you can find it, Brian. That's that Takeshi celadon. Yeah, this one right there. There it is. So that's a very, very faint green, but you can barely tell that it's green. So yeah, that's great over there. You know, over there you just go and go to your glaze studio, and it's not paint on glaze. For the most part, it's sprayed and poured or dipped, depending on how you want to do it. But you're putting it onto greenware. So if you're dipping it, you're basically, you know, almost maybe just pouring the interior space and then spraying the exterior. So the processes over there are a little bit different than the way that we work with stuff here. But I actually had to bisque fire my work when I was there because I wanted to be able to get the underglaze and the underglaze transfer on and be able to get those on. If I did those at the same time, then it essentially wouldn't work out right. I wouldn't be able to get both of those on at the same time with the way that it worked out in terms of kind of steps, and otherwise I'd get a lot of dripping color and whatnot. So you know, I was bisquing my work over there, which is not frowned upon. It's just not very often done.
I understand. Very cool. And this place with all the, I guess, cast pipes and fixtures, electrical fixtures, boxes, and the blue background is very intense. That's very cool. This complexity of water piece that we're looking at here.
This was, you know, the porcelain portion of this was done in Jingbujen, and it's all one piece. So I assemble those as sculptures. And then there's the wall one that's below it that's called tributaries, I believe. Those are all, you know, pipes that have been cast and then put together as you know, kind of cheese hard to leather hard items. And then tributaries is actually been epoxied and silicone to a porcelain tile that's like a midnight blue tile. And, you know, having this show and being able to create work for this show, these two pieces, especially, these were two that I was able to really bring to, like bring something that I've been thinking about for a very long period of time. You know, having deadlines and having to make work for shows is sometimes a blessing and a curse. In this case, it was a very big blessing because I've had this in my head about getting some sort of a backdrop to these porcelain pieces. And with that wall portion and the pedestal piece, the complexity of water, both of those I'm using polyurethane. And so I do silicone mold making. I actually made the positive in wax and then took and then sprayed it with a clear coat to make it shiny. And then I made silicone molds of both of these backdrops. And then I poured them in polyurethane. The one that's on the wall is the rigid polyurethane, doesn't flop around, but then the one that goes down on the pedestal, the complexity of water piece, that's a flexible urethane. And these are things that I learned when I was actually in animation, and I was doing an unpaid internship for an independent animation where I was doing mold making and set dressing for a stop motion film that unfortunately never got to see the light of day on Cartoon Network, but that was the kind of idea behind it. And so I learned a lot of those techniques, and then I've also taught these techniques teaching sculpture at Riverside City College and also teaching sculpture at Orange Coast College. They were difficult. It was a difficult task. They're very thin. They're at their thickest about 3/8 of an inch maybe, and to get polyurethane to go that thin and stay and actually cure took two separate heaters essentially to be able to do that. So, you know, there was a lot of technical aspect of this, using these materials to bring this kind of idea of mine to life. And I'm really pleased, and, you know, having that really bright blue background, almost like puddles or drips, representing the water essentially in both of these.
It's really stunning, that backdrop, and it really is eloquent to communicate, you know, the water element to there in the blue plastic. Very cool. Glad to see this brand new work. Is this the first time it's been shown here at McGroarty?
Very first time it's been shown.
Very cool.
Actually, all
Thank
this
you.
work, it's the first time it's been shown.
Glad to have it. Awesome. Well, I guess we've come to that time. It's just past 8 o'clock. I know we're going to be making announcements very soon, but let me just stop sharing here and see if anybody has any quick questions before we get to that. Let's see, didn't I stop sharing? Yes, I thought there. Come on, stop sharing. Okay. Oh, there we are. Welcome back. Anybody have any quick questions for Brian about his work or anything that you've seen?
Hey, Brian, is that the same dam mold that you used for your thesis show? That you used?
Oh, for those gold ones, those gold pieces,
Yeah.
it's a similar mold. I had to kind of make a new mold, but cut it to be able to make them open at the top. So, but yeah, it comes from that mold, but I have a block and case mold from that series, so I was able to use that block and case, but then change a little bit along the way. Slip casting has really become a big part of my practice, and it started in my graduate work, an installation piece, and then it continued on once I traveled to China and started doing more work in using the techniques and the methods and materials that they use there.
Right.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Well, I guess that now is the time. Before we make the award winner announcements, I'd like to take some time here just to thank some essential individuals that played an important role in putting together this virtual exhibition. As I mentioned, while a lot of the work in setting up an actual face-to-face exhibition in the gallery at McGroarty in Tahunga was avoided, the setup of the show in its digital format is also quite a big undertaking. So specifically, Ainsley Rickert, I don't know if she's here online with us, but she's kind of a site building extraordinaire for us at McGroarty. We're very glad to have her, and she did all the heavy lifting here, figuratively speaking, putting the show together. So, and I think it's an amazing job and quite amazing. So thank you very much, Ainsley. Of course, I'd also like to thank Kylie Rowan, our executive director at McGroarty. So we're very glad to have her and her work behind the scenes. And of course, my fellow board members, Debbie, Ostina, Frank, Ruth, Begonia, Joanna, Jennifer, and especially Leanne Stein for playing also a major role in the execution of this year's digital format, and is a very large reason why the logistics of the show has gone so smoothly over the last 2 years. So thanks to Leanne extensively. Of course, thanks to all the artists who submitted work into our annual juried open exhibition. Of course, it doesn't happen without you. So thank you very much for your support of the McGroarty Arts Center. Oh, sorry about that. Somebody's at the door. That's my doorbell, the dog. Anyway, thanks again, Brian Kohl, for lending your eye and selecting the show here. So I'm going to briefly go over the stats for this year's show. We had nearly 30 individual artists entrants submitting roughly 70 ceramic works from all over the continental United States. What has been assembled here by Brian from the jurors' selections are nearly 40 works represented by 20 artists, and a total 11 states from the country were represented, from Florida to New York, Texas to Colorado, and of course, Kansas all the way back home here to California, which had the majority of the entrants. Looking at the work in the show, quite amazing. So without further ado, I guess we'll get to the 6 award winners and the presentation. We have roughly a little over $1,200 to hand out in awards. So congratulations to the award winners. So I guess, Brian, if you want to start from the bottom up, leading our way to starting with the honorable mentions, and then work our way to the best in, oh,
All right. So, so we got 3 mentions show, and these are not in any specific order. So I'm just going to start with the first one that I have on my list, which would be the Untitled Cup, number 294 by Steve Hilton. And the title of the next one is COVID-19 Drinking Vessel by Stephen Horn. Whoa, hang on. Something just happened. Hang on. Yep. And
yeah, we're sharing the screen there. You can probably, you
oh,
can
perfect.
see
There we
these,
go.
the 3 honorable mention award winners.
And the other one is by Laura Bloomingstein, April Trailway T-Bowl number 7. So those are our 3 honorable mentions. And, you know, and is anybody here from those? I know Steve and both Steve Hilton and Steve Horn are not on, but is Laura Blumenstein on? Blumenstein? Or I guess we have a couple people that are listed as iPhones. So is Stephen Horn or Steve Hilton on? Want to talk about about their work? You know, one of the things that I did during this show is I really enjoy, you know, looking at both. And if you read my my juror statement, it kind of reflects this, is that I really look for work, and kind of these 3 pieces almost lend themselves in all these directions. But, you know, finding work that's not only from the historical background or what we think of as kind of the historical tradition of cup and mug making, but also a little bit more into the sculptural direction and the conceptual direction as well. So I was especially excited to find works that were presented in the show, and that those are some of the reasons that these 3 were chosen for awards. You know, Steve Horn's object, COVID-19 drinking vessel, being so whimsical and very representational of his work as an artist, having these, you know, heavy stamping, single colored, you know, but this kind of very different handle style that we're not used to seeing essentially on a traditional style cup or mug. And then with Laura's work, the use of these decals and transfers that are reflected, and, you know, a little bit of a manipulation of the work, but that cleanliness and that craftsmanship that I find so important in work is really you know, visible in these specific pieces. And then the use of this very light coloration of gold luster on the object is what I specifically loved about the object. And then with Steve Hilton's work going in that conceptual direction, but that form, the traditional form of the cup is very visible, the very elegant curvature of the handle, but then having this very rugged exterior, really representing the earth. And it's something also that's very representational of his body of work as a sculptor and a object maker. So those were my reasons for choosing these 3 objects.
Yeah, for Steve Hilton's work, the one on the left there that we're sharing screen, he has a kind of a geological background, science teacher background, and his training, and also as being, of course, a ceramic artist, is definitely something you definitely see in the work there, is kind of a very geological quality to it. And he talks about in his statement, his appreciation for the anomalies in the many forms of life, clay, rock, and soil covering the Earth's landscapes. So that's pretty interesting cup there. Almost looks like it kind of has a saucer form on the bottom underneath it, perhaps too.
Yeah.
All right, very cool. And of course, we're very familiar with Stephen Horn's work here being from Southern California. We've had him as a featured artist and a juror in one of our very first juried exhibitions here at McGroarty. This was maybe 4 years ago, I believe. So very, very cool work by Stephen Horn there.
All right, so we'll move on to 3rd place. And 3rd place goes to The Roads That Raised Us by Rachel Ward. And, you know, I was specifically drawn to this because there's this kind of a little bit of a duality between, you know, the shiny interior space of what we're used to seeing in a vessel, and kind of having this brightness. It's almost, it appears to be a little bit on the red side of things. But then this a little bit more, you know, I don't know, less treated, maybe I would say, in terms of glazes. So having this more natural kind of a feel to the clay on the exterior was really interesting to me. But then also seeing all these folds and almost skin-like quality of the actual form. And then, you know, having these, you know, street names or road names that were embedded onto the object as well, or carved into the object as well. That was something that really kind of drew my eye. There's almost you know, I almost sometimes see a face in there as well when I'm looking at it from that right-hand side, almost like a squinting or something, or, you know, squinting or folding of the eyes or the skin. And that's something that really drew me into that piece. And then, of course, there's an elegant, you know, curvature to the handle that's treated a little bit differently than a traditional style handle. So those were the, you know, big reasons why this specific object caught my eye.
And Ranch is here. As we heard, she's from Chicago, Illinois currently, but I believe I heard her say that she's from our neck of the woods here at McGroarty.
So we know she's with
Rachel?
us.
She
Yeah.
is with us, yes.
First,
Congratulations.
I'd like to say thank you so much. I actually have made a huge shift in my practice, and this show and this sort of application process really allowed me to make that shift and to like get such a strong response from my hometown is really important to me, as my concept like really works around memory. And I have something to say. Is that okay about the piece? Just something to read.
Certainly.
If that's okay. I know
Absolutely.
Okay. The lines and curves of mountainous terrain interrupted by highways and small towns have always been sources of inspiration to my practice. After reviewing topographical maps of La Crescenta, California, I noticed a queer relationship between Foothill Boulevard and the 210 freeway. The roads twist and follow each other and split away. The 210 continues up into the mountainous range that lines La Cañada, La Crescenta, and Sunland Tujunga. This mountainous region is referred to by La Crescentians as the Crest. As I began creating the roads that raised us, I was flooded with memories of times with friends and family that revolved around the main boulevards that ran through my small town. Stopping at Everest after practice for a breakfast burrito the size of a baby, running up the crest to get into trouble, or stopping at Tommy's on your way into Sunland just for a burger and fries. The mug is adorned with addresses and dark sooty scars to pay tribute to the small town that raised me. And the memories were really flooded a lot by the 2009 station fire. And so really this being so far away from home, this show really allowed me to feel nice and safe and remind me of home. And it was really important. So I really, really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Excellent job.
Good
Thank
job.
you.
Congratulations.
Thank
Have
you.
you heard of McGroarty Arts Center, Rachel?
So my friend Lulu was a resident artist or a worked there for a little while. Lulu Spartalotti. And my little brother had a piano recital there. I mean, we've been around the area. We've grown up. I mean, I grew up there. I've been there for now. It was 18 years when I left. So we've been in the La Crescenta area for a really long time. And ceramics was always something I was interested in. And I actually learned from Mike Flower, who works a lot with the La Cañada Community Center. But Mike Flower kind of showed me this, sent it to me. And then there's someone that works at McGroarty that works with my mom and also told me about the show. So I decided to apply.
Very good. We're glad to have you, and great to have that connection and that close association. Great.
Yeah.
Congratulations again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, congratulations, Ranch. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that takes us to second place, and second place goes to a piece called Hydrant Shot Glasses by Carrie Ohm. And Carrie is here. I saw her jump in.
Awesome. Carrie, would you like to make a quick statement, or?
Hi, I'm in the car, so I don't know how my connection is. I'm so sorry. I'm
Great.
traveling. Can you hear me? So I'm so excited. and it's funny because I've been working with imagery of hydrants for a little while now, which started in Chicago. So we have a little Chicago, California connection.
Hey.
I remember years ago hearing some article on NPR about how many of the hydrants in Chicago weren't even connected to water. And I thought, well, in that case, they're public sculpture that's being ignored. And so I need to draw attention. And then I started thinking about them as kind of connectors and like these symbols of all the things that are happening under the ground. So I was thinking way back when about how water is moving under the earth. And so lately I've been using the hydrants as sort of a way to show what's happening under the ground. And I thought these hydrants all connect, on a sidewalk, on a little piece of grass put together were kind of this absurd little thing. So they're kind of an offshoot of something I've been working on for a little while, but I'm super excited to be in this show and with other Chicago people, California people. I'm here now. So yeah, this is great. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry if I'm breaking up. I don't know how my connection is. So.
Sounds perfect, Carrie. But yeah, what drew me to this work, and I've not seen this work of yours before, but was just how different it was. From the exterior, they don't look like cups. And I think sometimes that's a really interesting thing for us to be able to do as makers, is to really be able to remove ourselves from these the historical setting and these traditions that are so deeply ingrained in the objects that we make, and to be able to remove yourself that much from those traditions, I think is wonderful. So thank you for presenting these to us.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure. That's great.
Congratulations. And you're coming all the way from Irvine, California for our show.
Yeah, I was
Correct?
excited to come for the opening, to get up to LA for a bit, but I'm happy to be here virtually from the car.
Your connection is flawless. We've heard everything that you said.
Perfect.
Congratulations again. And
now
I guess
congratulations.
Thank you.
Well,
yeah, let's go to Best of Show. So Best of Show goes to Plume Mug by Nate Ditzler. And yeah, what really drew me to this was just the sheer craftsmanship of this object and the glaze work that's on it, or underglaze essentially work that's done on it. It's just a lot different than what I've seen in a lot of realms of cup making. And there's a tremendous balance that's to the object with the size of the handle and the kind of voluptuous nature of these bumps that are coming off of the object, and that are, from what I can see, are mimicked in the kind of blobby nature of some of the shapes of color or the white, spots and the gray portions of the object. And yeah, it was just, and I didn't exactly know what to make of these kind of small little, short and longer lines, but it started to make me think a little bit of like Morse code and or coding of some nature that was maybe reflected in the object. And it was just a very interesting object to look at. And after finding out whose object it was, I did a little bit further investigation to find out what other kind of work they do. And they're also involved in, or Nate is also involved in slip casting to a degree. And, just seeing this object it just really caught my eye. And even the shadows that are created down underneath the object when it's sitting on, this white background, it really gave it a beautiful form, in my opinion. So yeah, thank you, Nate. Is Nate on with us? I'm not sure.
I am not sure. I don't see that name, but he has a little statement that goes with the work, so I can read that. It's very brief. It's apparently a collaborative work between himself, Nate Ditzler, and Laura Konesin from Oahu, Hawaii. And the statement reads, our collaborative utilitarian ceramics combine the sense of design and aesthetics in each of our individual sculptural studio practices. The amorphous blobs in both the form and surface explore the idea of the individual as being perpetually unresolved and in a fluid state of growth and change, existing within loose interpretations of landscapes. He comes all the way to us from Dubuque, Iowa. I particularly like this work because of the surface treatment is really cool matte glaze, and it's very consistent. It's a consistent matte glaze through all the different colors, the white and then the gray and the yellow. Very cool work. So congratulations to Nate Ditzler on the plume mug. And that concludes the awards presentation.
Beautiful.
So let me see if I can bring back up full screen here. All
Yeah,
right.
and sorry about that, Brian. I didn't have the other name for that collaborative work. I only had Nate Ditzler's work. So I'm sorry about not mentioning the other artist that was involved in that piece, Laura.
He only mentioned it in the statement. It wasn't
Okay.
when he entered. So it was a solo entry, but he talked about the it being a collaboration. So
Okay, well, that makes sense.
yeah. So I guess so we can have a brief. If anybody has any questions for Brian or anything in the show, or is the exhibition that he has assembled before you, now would be a good time. But I definitely want to say thank you again, Brian, for your selections and the amazing show that you assembled for us. And of course, your work, outstanding.
Well, and again, thank you to McGroarty Arts Center for having me. And it's been a great honor. And thanks to all the hard work for everybody behind the scenes for getting it all together.
I guess that that'll be it. All right, appreciate it again. Thanks again, Ainsley, Leanne, and Kylie for assisting in the Zoom and helping to put together the show and make it such a success. Hopefully next year we'll be back in the gallery space. I invite you all to write the LA Department of Cultural Affairs a letter and tell them to let us open up. All righty, signing off. Thank you very much again.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for being
Thanks
here,
for coming.
everybody. Have a good summer in Idaho, correct?
I will. All right, good to see you all.
Idaho. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, thanks. Great to see you again, Brian.
Good to see you, Shayna.
Cheers. Great work, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Message me anytime.
absolutely. There we go. Oh, come on. There we go.
Thanks, Dave, for letting us listen to that last